Okay, our guest today is Christie Bruce Lane. Christie is running for state senate in the 40th district, which is kind of northern San Diego. It covers a lot of territory. Christie's a proven leader in her community and understands the value of having strong representatives that reflects the voices of the district in Sacramento. It is my pleasure to have Christie Bruce Lane on. Christie, how are you?
I'm good. How are you? Thank you for having me today.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for joining us. So you're running for state senate. First off, tell us a little bit about Senate District 40. What's the makeup? What's in it? What's it cover?
Okay, so Senate District 40 is split Democrat registration 34%, Republican 34%. So it's neck and neck. But then we have no party preference or decline to state at 31. So it's D+2 district. But it has always been held by a Republican. This district is currently, Brian Jones sits in the seat. He's termed out. It does cover, like you said, a large part of East County, but North County, San Diego. So it's Rainbow, Fallbrook, Bonsall Valley Center, dips into Escondido, San Marcos, Rancho Bernardo Poway, and, it heads east, Lakeside, Verona. It's a pretty fairly large district. Total voters are about 500,000 in this district, 586,000.
Wow.
This is a Republican seat, and I intend to keep that a Republican seat by winning this and going to Sacramento.
Well, it sounds like with 31%, if it's equal Democrat, equal Republican, it sounds like the key is winning the not declared. A lot of people refer to them as the independents, and what they're saying is they are independent of the Republican Party or independent of the Democratic Party. It's not really all that accurate. In fact, they're really just declined to state is really the accurate way to describe those folks. It means that they are choosing not to state whether they're more Republican or more Democrat. Not necessarily independent, not necessarily middle of the road. In fact, a lot of studies show that some of the people with more extreme views actually decline to state. In other words, they may care deeply about a subject and don't feel that either party cares as deeply as they do. Therefore, they're not going to register with either of those parties. But they're kind of all over the map. So running for office, and being in the community, what have you found about the decline to state voter? What are they looking for, and what have you learned about them?
Yeah, the decline to state voter, typically, we've seen in the last cycle, they will lean right. But what I do know about them is that they do care about this, what we call the 70% issues. And those are issues that really, and I've always said this, Mike, I don't really care what side of the aisle you sit on. But what I do care about are the things that we actually agree on. And that's, our cost of living that's out of control, whether we talk about public safety, the border issues, we talk about fentanyl, sexually violent predators in our community, homelessness, or educational excellence for our children. And, those are the things that bind us. And I do know that the independents, they do care about those issues.
I think you're right. That's what I find. And I think it's right to say that a lot of them have a key issue that they home in on and say, hey, this is my do or die issue, whatever it is. Maybe it's Second Amendment, maybe it's some other issue. I know there's a lot of gun owners who have decided not to affiliate with either party because they don't feel like they've fully embraced, support for the Second Amendment. Now, you're somebody we've endorsed, San Diego County Gun Owners has endorsed before and have proven to be very vocal on Second Amendment issues. Do you want to tell the listeners, how do you feel about the Second Amendment and gun ownership in general?
Yeah, I'm a big supporter of Second Amendment. It's part of our Constitution. I guess you could say I'm a constitutional Republican. It is how I feel about it. It's foundational to maintaining all other rights. Our Second Amendment is consistently under fire, no pun intended, in California. And it's being eroded year after year, election cycle after election cycle. And one thing I do know is that in order to stop this, you have to stop electing people that don't stand up for the Second Amendment. And I am one that will stand up for the Second Amendment. I'm a gun owner. I'm a legal gun owner. And we have a fundamental right to protect our well-being, our families. And I've had some experience with protecting my own property and myself. I lived in Northern California for 6 years. This was prior to being married. I was alone. I owned a house. I lived on a third of an acre back, out in the country in a rural area. And I'll tell you, nothing scarier for a woman than being stalked for 2 years by somebody who shows up in a mask, gloves, and boots on their feet,
Jeez.
ready to enter your home and do harm. And I think most women would agree on that issue. We are targets in those areas. And for any of those women who've experienced that, you never forget the fear that you feel when you don't have any protection. All I had was my Labrador named River, who I think he made friends with the perpetrator because it's a really nice dog, so he didn't help. But I'm a staunch supporter of the Second Amendment. I will not waver on that as well.
Good. Yeah, and you haven't. You've run in the past. In other races, you've gotten, of course, San Diego County Gun Owners endorsement. You've gotten CRPA's endorsement. And one of the first things you did when you announced for state senate in the 40th is you went for the Second Amendment community's endorsements right off the bat. So what was it like? What's it like running for office in your district, in San Diego, in California, with a Second Amendment endorsement? What have you found? What's the feedback?
I think running with that endorsement is very important, especially in the 40, where I know in the Senate District 40, there are a lot of people who stand for the Second Amendment. I'll never forget, and I like to tell this story. I think most people do believe in the Second Amendment. And I think that over the past few years, a lot of people have been tested to that point. Now, look at a prime example in Israel, October 7th. Okay. This is what happens when you don't have the right to protect yourself. Now they do. I think they were caught off guard. But I'll never forget a conversation that I had with one of my neighbors, which I will remain nameless. This was during the time of COVID, and there were a lot of break-ins, a lot of burglaries, a lot of the criminals started coming out and taking advantage of those who are most vulnerable. And a lot of people in my neighborhood started installing Ring cameras. I mean, we're talking Ring cameras on the front door, Ring cameras on their side gates, Ring cameras on their roof. I mean, you name it, there was a Ring camera everywhere. And we started having break-ins. And I live in a decent neighborhood where you don't see a lot of break-ins, but that's changed, I'll say, today. My neighbor came out scared and asked me the question, well, what are we going to do? Because the police response time was delayed 45 minutes. Of course, the police have been defunded. They've given the police a bad name. Nobody wanted to back the blue, which I do. And this is a household who doesn't own firearms. And she asked the question, what do I do if there's a break-in? Now, they have 2 small children as well. And I had to look at her, and I know she's a registered Democrat. And I said, the police will not be able to help you. They're going to show up and do a cleanup job. Yeah. That's what's going to happen. You have to protect your family. There's no taking it back. Once the perpetrator breaks in your house, murders your child, rapes you, or do whatever they want to do with you behind the walls, I said, you are your family's line of defense, because it does take a little bit of time for police to respond. And you need to be able to hold that perpetrator off until they either respond, or you may be left with the ultimate decision to fight for your life in whatever way what that looks like. But you're not even giving yourself a chance.
Yeah, I think you've been a big supporter of our Not Me program, where we help women.
Yes, I have.
We help them get a gun, get training, and get a permit. And you've been very, very supportive of that program. Why is that? It sounds, well, I guess you've kind of answered. I was going to ask, why is that an important program to you? But you're kind of answering it now. But what are your thoughts on our Not Me program?
I think it's great. I mean, for those who have never been around guns or who want to learn self-defense training, and that's just buying you some time. And that's what you need, is to buy yourself time when your house is broken into or you have a perpetrator coming after you. I'm a huge fan. Of course, in my own organization, I deal with the aftermath of domestic violence or trauma on children. And
what's the name of your organization?
It's the Thumbprint Project Foundation. So what we do is we help transition homeless children who've been impacted by domestic violence, human trafficking, are trauma. I mean, these kids have witnessed pretty horrific things in their life and have undergone trauma. Now, the important thing is once these kids have, have this trauma on the brain, these neural pathways are formed, they're more than likely to go down the wrong path in life unless it's addressed. So that's what we do in my organization. But getting back to not me as as a female or even as a male, I mean, you want to be able to protect your family, whether that's self-defense or if you do choose to get a concealed carry or purchase a firearm. But it is a very important program. And I believe in it. There's a lot of victims out there that I know that wish they said, I wish I had that self-defense training. I wish I knew how to use a firearm. Not that I ever want to own one or fire a gun. Nobody ever wants to do that. Nobody ever wants to take the life of somebody else. Even police officers don't want to take the life of other people.
Yeah.
And
nobody does.
I think that's important to point out because they then undergo trauma after a shooting.
So we're watching, you've talked about you're a Republican, you're a supporter of the local Republican Party, you're actually very active in the local Republican Party, and we're watching nationwide the Democratic Party fall apart, and I mean really fall apart. We get into all kinds of details on how they're losing funding, they're losing support, they're losing races. It's really pretty ugly. But we're still in California. We're still even in San Diego, which historically has been a little more Republican, a lot more Republican than Democrat, but now it's just a little more Republican. In fact, I think that it's pretty neck and neck. We're pretty purple at this point. But what are your thoughts on what's happened nationally with Republicans versus Democrats? And then what are your thoughts on the local political landscape?
Yeah, so nationally, I mean, obviously, we went red. I mean, it was a sweep. Trump won by a landslide. California I always believe, is a country on its own, and it's different when it comes to local politics. In my last race, what's interesting is I beat Trump in his numbers. I beat Garvey. I put up great numbers. Ultimately, was unable to prevail in that race, but the Democrats had $5.5 million they were able to dump on me. This time, that's not going to be the case. And we're going to win this seat. But locally, it's a little different. We dice our territory up. We really analyze it. And that plays a huge part. What we found in my last district was, which overlaps the Senate seat, by the way, you get the uninformed and uneducated individuals that we need to reach, right? And reach with my message. Again, I will still go back to it's educating the Democrats. No matter how liberal they are, there are some you can't reach, but there are a lot of moderates who understand that the government is in their back pocket. We're seeing increased cost of living.
Is there? Let me ask you. This is something I ask just about every candidate. Is there a particular plank in the Republican platform that you disagree with, that you're not on the same page with as your own party?
A specific plank? That's a good question, Mike.
Thank you. I should do this more often.
You know what? I'm going to give it a broad stroke here, but this is what I don't agree with at all. That you get elected and you go to Sacramento or you go to Washington and you don't fight. That you sit there, we call it milquetoast. We have no time for that anymore. We need fighters. We need fighters in Sacramento and we need fighters in Washington. And that's what I don't agree with. Electing Republicans who refuse to go up there and fight, that just want a job and just want a paycheck and just want to show up to vote every now and then. And I also disagree with when you get elected that you don't go up there and you put resolutions on the floor or that you don't put bills on the floor. That's your job. And there's a lot of things that need to be changed in San Diego, in California. And you've got to have the experience. And I happen to have that experience, which is a bright line between my opponents and myself. And you got to be able to go up there and fight for the things that people elect you for.
You've been a fighter. That's one of the things that was real clear to me from the first time I met you at a Republican Central Committee meeting, is that you are absolutely a fighter. You're not shy about standing up and saying, hey, right or wrong, whatever you believe, this is where I stand. These are my principles, and I'm going to fight for it. Let me ask you one last question about being an elected official. Let's say there's a bill that's being that you're going to have to vote on, and let's say that you know for a fact that 90% of your district, 90%, you know for a fact that 90% want you to vote for it, but you are completely opposed. It's the very fiber of your being opposes this bill. As an elected official, are you supposed to vote the way 90% of your district wants you to vote, or do you vote your own principles?
Well, I mean, we can carve out, let's look at, okay, I'm going to talk about this in two ways. Yes, I represent my district and I vote according to what my district wants. That's why they elected me, because they supposedly elected me because I hold their values, that I will go up there with, they believe in what I'm fighting for. They believe in what I believe in. But let's take an issue, Second Amendment. There are, this is why we're going through what we're going through in California, always having to fight for our Second Amendment rights. And I think that is, and they used it against me last cycle, that I do believe in Second Amendment. That's one issue I'm not going to waver on in Sacramento. We have the duty, and I'm representing all of the state of California now, we have the right to protect ourselves. I don't believe the Senate District 40 is anti-2A. They know I will fight for 2A. Mm-hmm. But I mean, there are some wedge issues where my principles, like Second Amendment, that I believe in the Constitution, I will always hold to the Constitution, that I will stand strong on. Nice. If that answers your question, Mike.
I think that perfectly answers my question. I'm not sure there's even a right or wrong answer to that question, but it's always a good thought-provoking question that candidates,
yes.
It's a good exercise for them to go through. Okay, Christie Bruce Lane, Senate District number 40. Where can people learn more about you and contribute either their dime or their time to your campaign?
Yeah, so it's ChristieBruceLane.com. And it's not only about the money. The donations allow me to get my message to the voters, which we need. But if you have chance to volunteer, to make phone calls, those are all ways, or walk the district, those are all ways that you can help me. I'm going to go up there and fight to reduce our cost of living. I'm going to fight for public safety. Again, I work in the area of homelessness. We can solve this issue, and we need to get educational excellence back to our future generation, and that's our children. I need your help. I look forward to getting up to the state of California representing Senate District 40. And I appreciate you, Mike, as well, and all that you do for our community. But to learn more about me, go to ChristieBruceLane.com. You can also email me, and you can call me, and I will talk to you if you have any questions. I'll feel free to call you back or email you back, and we'll have a conversation.
Great. Awesome job. If I don't see you before, have a very great 4th of July, and I hope to talk to you soon. And thanks for making the time. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much. Let's win.
Hey, thanks for watching Gun Owners Radio. I hope you loved that clip. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and follow us on social media, and check out our website at gunownersradio.com.